Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Peter Gay here, but you can call me your finance PT. So in today's video, I'm going to be speaking to you about emergency funds. So what an emergency fund is, how much you should aim to save when initially starting, and all of those good stuff in between. But before we get into that, I want to just share some quick facts and stats with you. So did you know that 1 in 10 Brits have no savings at all? Absolutely nothing, not even 1p, have nothing. And hearing that statistic is quite shocking, but at the same time, it's quite worrying. If you think about the fact that we're still in an ongoing pandemic and there are many households that actually have no savings whatsoever. And what I tend to find when coaching is that this leads you to taking on more debt. If you don't have any savings, if you don't have any reserves, then essentially when you have emergencies, you're going to have to rely on credit, which is not always the best way of running your finances. And did you know that 1 in 3 Brits have less than £600 in savings? Now, I for one know that £600 would not be able to cover my bills for 1 month, let alone even my rent. So this just shows that a lot of people are living from payday to payday. If they don't get paid 1 month, they will not be able to survive because they don't have sufficient savings. So before I get into it, let's actually speak about what an emergency fund is actually for. So it's kind of in the title. An emergency fund is to cover emergencies that may occur. This happens to all of us. It could be an emergency such as unexpected bills that you're not expecting, a large bill that you do not have sufficient funds to cover. It could be your car breaks down and you have to offset the insurance to pay that. It could be unexpected repairs. It could even be that you've lost your job, you've been made redundant, and of course the bills do not pause because you don't have income. So again, these would be to cover unexpected emergencies so that you will have financial peace and security, and you're not going to need to rely on credit to get you through that difficult time. So what I would definitely say is defining what your emergency fund is for you, because it's easy to define anything as an emergency. Now, emergency is not that Zara has an amazing sale and you need to get yourself some new clothing. And an emergency fund is not for you need a holiday and you just feel like life is hard right now, I need a holiday. That is not an emergency. You might feel like you need that holiday, you may feel like you need that particular item, but that is definitely not an emergency. So I think it's very important when creating your emergency fund to actually define for yourself what an emergency is going to be. Because once you start saving up for your emergency fund and you're seeing that money grow, there will be temptations. And that's why I think it's important to actually have a separate savings account just for your emergency fund. So if you are saving for a holiday, if you are saving to buy a house, to buy a car, or for any other purpose, separate your savings. Make sure your emergency fund is separated by itself and do not mix that money with another purpose, because that way you're going to be dipping in and out and it's going to get confusing. So definitely, first and foremost, make sure you separate your savings. You set up a separate savings account just for your emergency fund, an account that's easily accessible, but something that you don't necessarily have a card for, so that you're not going to end up going on shopping sprees with your emergency fund money. Now, let's get into what is the actual amount that's important. Now, a lot of people say that you need to have £1,000 in your emergency fund, but the reality is that amount will not cover everyone. I would suggest as a starter emergency fund, aim to save up 1 month's worth of your expenses. So whatever that figure is going to be. So in my case, I think that's around £1,400. Maybe in your case, it's a little bit less or even more. But I think what you also need to factor in is not just your bills, but also food and travel expenses. Because even though you might not have any income, you're still going to need food, and I'm sure you're probably still going to need to travel. So definitely make sure you factor that in when actually calculating the amount that you'll need for your starter emergency fund. Now, if you're completely starting from scratch and right now your emergency fund is zero, one thing I'd suggest is actually going through your budget and really assessing how much can you afford to save each month. So if you haven't checked out my budgeting video, I will link it in the card so you can check it out, and that will basically show you how you can calculate how much you can afford to save. So once you've actually found that amount, so let's say it's £100 a month, that's what you can afford to save. Automate your savings, set up a standing order so that when you get paid, that £100 is going to go directly into your emergency fund. Now, if you have Monzo, there's also a great way of creating different pots. You could create a pot just for your emergency fund, and again, automate those savings so that when you get paid or when you receive your income, that will go straight into your emergency fund and you don't even need to do anything or even think about it. So that way you will know that each and every single month you will be adding on to your savings irrespective of what's actually happening around you. You don't need to consciously do it. And it's important to automate your savings, because if you just rely on yourself to remember, or if you say, oh, I'll just see what I have at the end of the month, chances are you might not have anything left at the end of the month, or you might not have a sufficient amount that meets your target. So definitely set yourself a goal, set yourself a target. And also, first and foremost, like I said, calculate how much you can afford. If it's going to take you 1 year to fund your emergency fund, so be it. But don't allow the fact that it may take you long to deter you from actually getting started. It's better for you to start and to save something than to never get started because you feel like you can't save anything. So definitely start where you can. And when you receive unexpected money, what can you do with that? Why not put a percentage of that into your emergency fund? So that's going to help you to build it a lot quicker. So once you've gotten to the point of you've met your starter emergency fund of 1 month's worth of expenses, then in terms of increasing your goal, you can then work towards saving up 3 months worth of expenses, 6 months, and so on. There are people that have saved up 12 months worth of expenses, essentially a whole year. So if anything happens to their income, they have 1 year carefree. They don't have to worry about money. And I think especially in these turbulent times that we're in, aiming to at least have that 1 month's worth of expenses is really going to ease that pressure for you. You know, we're in a situation where a lot of people are being made redundant, are losing their jobs, but equally there are people that are getting new jobs, getting promotions. So don't be disheartened if right now you feel like you're stuck in your career or you're not happy where you're at. So just to summarize, guys, an emergency fund is for emergencies. It's not for impulse buys. This should be for legitimate emergencies. It's really, really important to start up an emergency fund if you don't already have one. And I think if you've learned nothing from the pandemic, it's that life is unexpected and finances are not always secure. Anyone can lose their job, anyone can have a decline in their business, and this is why it's important to really make sure that you are putting systems in place that are going to allow you to have that financial security and not have to worry about money and have sleepless nights. So if you don't already have an emergency fund, this is your reminder and your push to get started. And if you have any questions about emergency funds or any other finance related topic, feel free to drop me a comment or even just contact me via my details below. I'd be happy to answer your questions. If you have any ideas of videos that you'd like me to cover, do let me know. If you found today's video useful, do give it a like. And if you're just watching and you're not already subscribed to my channel, do subscribe for more videos just like this. Have a great rest of your week. Happy saving and spend responsibly.